Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Hail, hail the victors. Once again, national champions Jim Harbaugh and Michigan get their first since 1997. And the Pac-12, they go out with a whimper. Also, the NFL coaching carousel went crazy on another harrowing Black Monday. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It's a season that will be remembered for its controversy, for its polarizing nature in Ann Arbor. It will also now be remembered as the year Jim Harbaugh and this Michigan Wolverine program won a national title, its first since 1997. They beat down Washington 34-13 in a game that they controlled from the very outset. Craig Sheeman from Locked On Big Ten joins me now. And Craig, almost 200 yards of rushing in the first quarter, set the tone a little bit, I would say. What was the key in this one?
It was just that. Michigan started out doing what I thought they would do. I didn't know it would be to that extent. I mean, look, Washington's weakness is its rush defense, and there was going to be plenty of Blake Corum. What I didn't expect was the Donovan Edwards, who kind of honestly had a down year this year. Blake Corum scored all the touchdowns. Donovan Edwards was just busting it all over the place. I will give Washington credit for getting back in it, but Michael Penix is the most accurate passer in college football. He has the most 20-plus yard pass plays in the country this year, and he was overthrowing everybody. I think the Michigan defensive line, I think they only sacked him once, if I remember, maybe twice. But they kind of made him throw, I think, a half second early each time. He was a little bit uncomfortable all night. And I think those two things were the key. Michigan's ability to run the ball and just make Penix just a hair uncomfortable with those long passes and those incredible wide receivers that he has.
At a time when the game is spreading out and it's getting more like basketball on grass, Michigan does not play that way. They play a kind of old school ground and pound. We saw it in this game, and they can be explosive even doing that. But you win a national title in this day and age, going 10 of 18 for 140 with your quarterback. You're really doing something here. Is there, and you're the perfect person for this because you're our Big Ten host, is there a little bit of sort of Big Ten football vindication here, do you think?
What I think it does, I think it says more about the Pac-12 because, right, the argument is, okay, the Big Ten, you got to be physical, you got to grind. The top 4 teams in the country defensively are Big Ten teams and 6 of the top 20 in scoring defense. And then you see the Pac-12 have its best year all that I can ever remember. And it's a shame that they're, folding, if you will. They've had all these exciting quarterbacks. They've had all these teams that score offense. They aren't really known for the defense. So I was really curious how this matchup was going to work. I'm on record on plenty other places and on my podcast. I thought Michigan would win in the low 30s, and I thought Washington would score in the high 20s. I thought that was going to be the game. Michigan did its part, but Washington did not. Jesse Minter had a perfect defense dialed up to handle all those receivers, and they didn't really get toasted all night. Only 3 times this year did teams score more than 20 on Michigan, and I thought that Washington had the best offense that they had faced all year, so I thought they would get above the 24-point mark, maybe into the high 20s. They didn't, and all the credit in the world to Michigan's defense. And so I have to wonder a little bit about as great as the Pac-12 was this year, how great was it in relation to the Big Ten? But hey, the Big Ten's glad to have those 4 new schools coming. October 5th, mark it down. That's the rematch, the Huskies and the Wolverines at Husky Stadium, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, usually we have to have, to get a rematch, you need like 2 SEC schools in there to have a situation like this. But because realignment is what it is, weird things happen this way. Craig, I can't not ask you about the future of Jim Harbaugh. How do you think winning the national title affects his future in Ann Arbor?
I've had a gut feeling I think he's gone no matter what, but I think winning definitely checks that box. Remember, he wanted to bring his alma mater, a place that he loved, back to prominence. They were really getting kicked around for a while back in the day. He gets them back to 3 playoffs in a row, wins the championship, checks that box. I do believe he wants to win a Super Bowl like his brother. And, there's that narrative out there that college coaches can't coach in the NFL. Well, he's already had some success in the NFL. Yeah. And if he could say, all right, I've won a title at college and I'm going to win a Super Bowl, I think that checks the box. He's 60 years old. Now would be the time to do it. I thought win or lose, he's gone, but definitely win. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something this week that he's the head coach of the Chargers or something like that. I could be wrong. I could be way wrong. Look, I thought that Minnesota was going to offer him the job last year, and they didn't want it. They went in a different direction. And so you never know what's going to happen with these things. But my gut feeling is I think he's gone. I'm sad he's gone. He's great for the Big Ten. He's great for Michigan. He's great for college football. He's great for Locked On Big Ten, believe me. I'm going to be sad to see him go.
Well, a big glass of milk for Coach Harbaugh tonight and a national title in his trophy case. Craig, thank you.
No doubt. Appreciate it.
Stay up to date all year on the Big Ten Conference by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Big Ten on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, Washington gave everything they had, but came up well short. Where do the Huskies go from here as they head to the Big Ten? The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets whether you win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, what are you waiting for? The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, teasers, and more. There's also weekly promos and boosts to give you plenty of opportunities to increase your payout. The biggest point spread for Wild Card Weekend belongs to the Bills and Steelers. FanDuel thinks Buffalo's going to run away with this one. The Bills, 10-point favorites over the Steelers. You can also combine bets for bigger payouts. Same-game parlays are a great way to enjoy watching sports. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and do the NFL season right. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Pac-12 put together one of its finest seasons in what is essentially going to be its swan song, but they go out with a bit of a whimper in the national title game. They made it a game in the second quarter, and then in the second half, Michigan pulled away to win their first national title since 1997. Roman Tomashaw from Locked On Huskies joins me now, and Roman, you were there in the building, and this will be a memorable season for Washington fans for a lot of reasons. How do you think this year will ultimately go down in the annals, as it is the last in the Pac-12?
Well, it'll be let's start there, because it'll be a very memorable Pac-12 season for sure. As we look back over the top 10 now, the AP top 10, a headline by Washington. The Pac-12 had 3 teams in there. We look at Oregon, we look at Arizona making their way in there. So the Pac-12 really did find a way to go out with a bang, which is the most that you could ask for. And just when you talk about it from a Washington perspective, to see everything that all these players fought through to get to this point. Of course, it didn't end the way that anybody wanted it to. But the fact that they were able to say that they went 14-1, got to this point, got to the national championship after this, of course, couple different guys, right? Michael Penix, Dylan Johnson being 2 of the biggest ones. This basically the same exact roster went 4-8 2 years ago. And it's just so incredible to see what Kalen DeBoer has done for this team. And, of course, assuming he signs his contract extension here in the coming weeks, what he can do with this program for as long as he wants to be here, to be honest.
Yeah, the program piece of that is interesting too, because now they make their move. We're going to see this game again in, 9 months, because this is going to be a regular season game next year. But it does feel like, to me, the success of someone like Rome Odunze or Michael Penix could be just as important in the NFL. I mean, could be just as important to the next step with this program as this game was, or maybe it is just a continuation of that rise.
No, absolutely. So it's one of the nice things is after the first couple of years of, not necessarily having the best recruiting classes or something, today, Washington got a commitment from the top in-state player in the class of 2025, four-star linebacker Zadrius Rainey-Sale, who's top 100 kid nationally, just a super talented linebacker. And it all felt like what Kalen DeBoer and his program was building towards was this 2025 class. And getting Rainey-Sale was a really great way to start that off. And of course, you talk about Michael Penix, you talk about Rome Odunze. We see some really talented younger guys in the room right now. We talk about quarterback Austin Mack, who probably isn't going to have the job in 2024 with transfer Will Rogers coming in. But there's so much talent on this roster. I really like this most recent recruiting class that the Huskies have brought in. So it all feels like that this is the start of something greater in the Kalen DeBoer era.
This clash of styles, it seems to me, is going to be interesting here moving forward because the Pac-12, there's this reputation that they don't play the same sort of brand of smash mouth football that the Big Ten plays. And we had Craig Sheeman on from Locked On Big Ten, and he was saying, well, it's really more about defense, that the best defenses have been in the Big Ten. So is there, you think, going to have to be a change? Does this game help signal, hey, there's going to have to be some change in style to compete in a different conference?
So not necessarily, where I think that Michigan, they have a fantastic team, but that's just... That has to be the first and foremost thing here, where Washington just never found a way to click. Dylan Johnson sprained his ankle on Washington's first play from scrimmage tonight. So that because Washington showed at a lot of points this year that when they wanted to run the ball effectively, they could. Dylan Johnson really struggled tonight because he was already dealing with a foot injury, dealing with a knee injury as well. And then he says, yeah, the one thing that was working was my left ankle. And then I suffer a high ankle sprain on the first play. So they've shown that they can, because this offensive line won the Joe Moore Award. They can, Kalen DeBoer, and that's one of the things about Kalen DeBoer and his staff. If they've shown the ability to adapt and the ability to find a way that no matter what the way the game has gone, to find a way to win. They've suffered 3 losses. This is far and away the worst one. The other 2 were 1 possession games on the road in tough scenarios, but now it's just about finding a way to get back because they overcame a lot to get to this point, and it's about building for the future now. And there seems to be a lot that they can do in terms of building the roster. And Kalen DeBoer talked about that in his most recent signing day presser as well.
It is the end of something for the Pac-12, but it feels like the beginning of something for Washington. Roman, appreciate the time. Stay up to date all year on the Washington Huskies by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Huskies on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, there were plenty of coaching jobs that came open in the NFL yesterday. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the realities of real life, but let's talk about preparing for tough situations for a minute. Whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered. Thanks to our partners at Jace Medical. Life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply, even ED generics for Cialis or Viagra. Jace Medical has the Jace case, a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, and many others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use order code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. It was Black Monday again in the NFL. Every year, we see coaches, a slew of them usually, lose their jobs in a tough day to be an NFL coach. It is something that starts earlier and earlier, apparently, because Arthur Smith was fired under the cover of midnight darkness last night. Locked On Falcons host Aron Freeman has more.
Well, obviously, they're going to have to find a new head coach, but at the same time, they're going to have to get a new quarterback. That's going to be the big topic of conversation. Now it's going to be someone else's choice for a quarterback. And I think that was a big reason that led to the dismissal of Arthur Smith with his choices of quarterback, starting with Matt Ryan, then Marcus Mariota, then Desmond Ridder, then Taylor Heineke. And it felt like even though they were not necessarily the sort of plan A's for the Atlanta Falcons, given the struggles of all of those quarterbacks here in Atlanta, it didn't feel like Arthur Smith, quote unquote, deserved another chance to find a fifth quarterback in 4 years. And I think that's going to be sort of the big question for any of the impending hires is, what is your plan for the Atlanta Falcons at quarterback?
The Washington Commanders decided Ron Rivera was not their guy, as Locked On Commanders host David Harrison looks at the replacement candidates.
Number 1, Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald. Number 2, Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris. Number 3, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. And before anybody gets offended that I might have put your guy number 3 or your guy number 2, or maybe your guy's not in my top 3, this list is all good. Like, bottom line, the entire list is good. Nobody on this list, like, I'm not thumbing my nose up at anybody on this list. I don't even know if that's a saying, but there's not a name on this list I look at and I just go, that's gross. So in reality, I like all of them. It's just who I like the most.
The New York Giants are in the market for a defensive coordinator after Wink Martingale stepped down. Locked On Giants host Patricia Traina details the change.
There came a report initiated by, I believe it was Charlotte Carroll of The Athletic, who reported that Drew Wilkins, the outside linebackers coach, and his brother Kevin Wilkins, who is a Giants defensive assistant, both of them were relieved of their duties. Now, why is this important? Because the Wilkins brothers were handpicked by Wink Martingale to join the Giants staff. They had been with him in Baltimore when Wink was the defensive coordinator down there. They were tight, the three of them. You know, they were on the same page. It was like each guy could finish the other guy's sentence. That's how tight they were. So what was kind of interesting here with this whole thing is the second that word got out that those brothers had been fired, I thought to myself, okay, probably just a matter of time before Wink resigns, because I kind of saw it as a power play here.
And the Panthers decided firing the head coach wasn't enough. Carolina fired general manager Scott Fitterer as well. Locked On Panthers host Julian Council looks at why.
During his 3-year tenure as Panthers general manager, the team is 14-37. I've talked about since doing this show, which was the beginning of the 2021 season. Now, really March 2021, but really the first season fully I covered was 2021. And the Panthers have only had 14 opportunities for me to come up here and have a live show breaking down a Carolina Panthers win. And Scott Fitterer has been the general manager throughout that entire time. Fitterer did not have roster control until this season, which is important to understand when breaking down his firing. Matt Rule had the final say with the 53 in 2021 and in 2022. But there's so many things that went wrong with the roster, which is Fitterer's job as a general manager. And as someone who spent 20 years as a scout in the NFL, as a talent evaluator, to have a roster that looks as bad as the Carolina Panthers roster looked during this 2023 season, being the worst team in the NFL, the first 2-15 team ever, as this was a third season of a 17-game schedule, that is unacceptable for someone to have the background of Scott Fitterer, having been a scout for those 20 years in the NFL before coming to Carolina to be the Carolina Panthers general manager.
And a couple of NBA stars got hurt on Monday. Tyrese Halliburton is having his hamstring looked at, and Ja Morant is having season-ending shoulder surgery. Halliburton left the Pacers' 133-131 win over the Celtics in the second quarter with a hamstring strain. He will have an MRI today to ascertain the severity. Meanwhile, Morant suffered a subluxation of his right shoulder during a training session on Saturday. He missed Sunday's road win over the Phoenix Suns, and an MRI revealed an underlying labral tear that will require surgery. His season is over barely before it's begun. And finally, Tiger Woods and Nike are donezo. From the moment Tiger Woods turned pro in August of 1996, he was decked in Nike swooshes from head to toe. For 27 years, no one has been more synonymous with a brand, except maybe Michael Jordan, than Woods and Nike. The company released a statement saying, "You challenged the entire institution of golf. You challenged us, and most of all yourself. And for that challenge, we're grateful." No word yet on if Woods will still wear red on Sundays. I'm guessing he will. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will the Pacers be able to overcome the loss of Tyrese Halliburton if it is for an extended period of time? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.